So we're going to be talking about the Great Resignation, myth or reality. And with that in mind, there's another polling question for you. Let's get some data from this wonderful crowd here. In your opinion, in your current organization, how is the churn rate? The rate at which people are resigning and leaving the organization compared to usual now? I'll let you define what usual is. But usual, yeah, I'll let you tell us here. So do you think it's higher than usual? So therefore there is something about a resignation going on? Is it lower than it used to be than usual? About the same? Or maybe you just don't have enough data to decide that? Fine. Here we go. Scores coming through. I'm sure the panel here is very curious to find out as well. Over a third of you saying higher. We've got quite a mix. I know you don't know, that's fine. So our audience out there would just about say the Great Resignation, myth or reality, just about reality. But of course a mixed view, so there is of course some saying no. It's a myth as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. I am now delighted to welcome some wonderful smiley faces to the panel, to the lounge. Welcome Lunia, to Brad, to Nico, to Anna, and to Matt. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much.
Super.
Happy to be here.
Good. And as you'll see, we've got a couple of people in virtually. That's Brad and Nico. So a truly hybrid 2022 venue. Nice wave, Nico. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of them in a moment for just a quick 30 seconds of their own personal opinion about the question, the Great Resignation, myth or reality. And then I'm going to spark the discussion based on what they've said. I might pop a few questions in there. I'd like to throw in a few questions from you out there as well. So for one other platform education, there is a questions button right here. So with that in mind, please do put your questions to these wonderful people here. Be that now or as we go, please do start to put your questions in. You may also notice that there's an upvoting button as well. So even if you don't ask a question, please do upvote and like the questions that you want to prioritize hearing the answers to. So with that in mind, let's get going. Enough of me. Let's hear from these wonderful people instead. And we'll go from right to left, if that's okay over here. Matt, the Great Resignation, myth or reality?
I think we'll probably hear arguments for both sides today. For me, maybe even more interesting than whether it actually exists is why it exists. So I'd like to ask the question today, what are we going to do about it if people really are leaving their companies? Are we going to do anything about the environment, the culture, the leadership, the communication? Do we care enough about our people and the system that they work in to try and stop them going? That's quite important and interesting to me.
Super, thank you very much. Anna.
Well, I think it could be real, but will it make a difference? Is it just a little peak because of the COVID and people got to see their kids and thought, okay, maybe there's more to life than work. Maybe I would like to see my kids once or twice more. And we all know that when you've done that for a while, you want to go back to work, right? No, just kidding. I'm just saying that there could be this little peak and then everything will go back to normal. It could also be something about the region. I mean, I'm from Scandinavia, and we don't see it there, but we're used to having sort of a flexible workforce, resigning and getting rehired, and so it's. I think it's complex.
Okay. It's complicated.
It's complicated and complex.
Okay, good. Thank you. Super. Thank you much, Nico. What do you have to say?
Yes, for me, it's not fake news, it's reality. I would rather call it the great change, because a lot of things are changing at the moment. People normally don't like changes. That's why they don't change the job. They don't change the brands they like, not that often. But Corona accelerated what technology made possible. So working from home was now shown as a real alternative, and working also in logistics might be much more interesting than working on Saturday evening in a restaurant. And that was not, the people didn't think about this before. Now they think about it, and they see it's real, it's working, it's better for them. And of course, in some industries, they won because of those changes, and others lost. So for me, it's reality, a big change that has been introduced now.
Super. Thank you very much, Nico. A very strong statement there. Brad.
Well, I would have to agree with what Nico said, because people aren't resigning just to sit on the sidelines. What they're doing is moving to different roles. And there are some things that employers can do to hold on to them. And there's some things that they can't necessarily control in people's lives. But the numbers bear that out. At least here in the US, we've seen 57 million people who've left their jobs in the last 14 months. 57 million out the door. But you know what's interesting is 89 million people have started new jobs. So that, to me, is just a telling stat that says there's still room for improvement. And right now, what you've got is that there are 2 open jobs in the U.S. for every 1 unemployed person. So this really is an opportunity for the workers to be able to find what it is that's important to them.
Okay, super. Very interesting, huge numbers, 89 million. That's amazing. Lunia, what's your perspective, please?
I think we are raising the wrong question here, because it doesn't matter if there is a resignation or not. Fact is, people are dissatisfied. In Germany, the number 1 reason why employees leave companies is because of their manager. And this is regardless of the pandemic. It was even there before. So people are craving for change because they're dissatisfied, and we can't ignore this. We need to find solutions. We need to find solutions that satisfy the need for a better employee experience.
So if the question is not the great kind of resignation myth or fact, what's the new question?
The question is, what can we do to improve the employee experience?
Okay. Any thoughts?
I've got to say I agree. I'm not sure what the numbers are, and I think what we've probably heard and what we will hear is, Brad was mentioning the stats in America, you were mentioning the stats in Scandinavia. In Germany, I think they may go up and down. I think there may be trends. We may be in one of those up or down trends. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a statistician. But I agree with the fundamental issue of human interaction and human connection. And I think maybe that this insight that we've got from Corona, you jokingly mentioned we've got to know our families again and those kind of things. We've put on a different pair of glasses, right? We've seen a different kind of existence. And I would understand if people were getting pickier about the kind of boss that they worked with. I would understand if people are starting to make decisions like, actually, I want to work somewhere where I feel really loved and cared for and comfortable and safe. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some fluctuation for that reason, because people want to feel psychologically safe.
But could that not just be an acceleration of something we've seen for years, that we do not start and retire in the same workplace? We don't get that watch after 25 years anymore. And this is just like part of that development that we already saw. And maybe it's not a bad thing.
Okay. Well, maybe that's why I don't have a watch. Okay, good. I don't know, you might have noticed at home, but we've actually got another person who's joined us virtually. Unfortunately, some technical problems, so now I'm delighted to welcome Lutz. Welcome to the panel discussion.
Welcome to everybody. Hi to all.
Good. Well, actually, as you might have heard, we've just started talking about leadership and managers. It's an area that you're particularly passionate about, so anything to add at this stage, just to welcome you in as well?
Yeah, from my opinion, this big wave for resignation is clearly a myth, because the numbers do not, it's not founded by the numbers, especially in the German market. We see not this huge wage of fluctuation in the labor market today. And we have, in prosper times when the economy grows, we see more fluctuation than in harder times when the crises are dominant. That's for clear. But right now we see not this huge wave of fluctuation. But of course, it's easier to quit the job. So you just stay at home, work with a different laptop of another company. You do not have to move to another city. You can just work for another company without effort, without moving your location, for example. So it's much easier to quit the job. So maybe we fear that many people quit their jobs, so we do not see this in the economy in Germany. Definitely not. And I guess it's more a problem, or it's a conflict between generations, because the younger generation, they expect more appreciation and to be valued for their job. Where in the older generation in the job, for them it's quite normal to work hard because we were educated in the sense. For the younger generation, they expect more appreciation, and I think that's the problem, and that leads to a higher fluctuation in different or in some industries, like the digital industry.
Okay, interesting. So that speaks a bit to that I am seen thing before. Any reflections on appreciation, generations?
From my perspective, I wouldn't say it's a generation problem, because people were even before wanted managers who appreciate them more, who value them, and who see them. And it's just that the new generation, they're more open to express what they want, what they need. But it's not that the older generations that they don't need it.
Interesting point.
It could also be about the I am growing thing you mentioned before, developing and becoming better and mightier at what you do. And maybe just after 3 years in that workplace, you've learned what you should, and you want new challenges, and you want to develop in a different way. And maybe that's part of it as well.
Well, and I think I'd love to add to that, because I think in the U.S., in the tech sector that I know well and have worked in for many, many years, you're also seeing people leave great jobs at places like Apple and Netflix and Google to join startups. And that's because they want experience. They want in on the ground floor in things like blockchain and cryptocurrency and things that are going to make their resume look good in the future. So in a sense, they're taking control of their careers instead of sitting around waiting for that manager to appreciate them a little bit more, or the opportunity to show up within a large organization. So there are many motivating factors for that resignation and the change.
I've got to say, I agree with what Brad says to a certain extent, and also what you say. I think it's a combination of the two. A few years ago, I was hearing from a lot of the people I was working with, a lot of managers, the new young kids, they just don't focus anymore. You know, they just don't care about work, or they don't work as hard as we used to. Genuinely, I was hearing this a lot. And I think that's unfair. I think that's derogatory towards them. I think, as you rightly say, I think they're just a little bit choosier, and maybe social media is playing a role here. That our Weltanschauung, our worldview, is being grown a little bit, and we're able to see that that there are different ways of living, there are different places to visit. Maybe that's playing a role, and I agree with what Brad is saying. That the thing that these startups have got in common is that they care about or a lot of them, they create leadership cultures where people want to work there. Right? And that's why people are drawn there. It's the future that Brad is talking about, but it's also that buzz of working in those kind of environments. And I think we've got, instead of criticizing the younger generation for not working hard enough, I think we should create environments where they are pulled as opposed to pushed.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that was not my sentence. I do not criticize the younger generation.
I just want to make that very clear. I didn't say Lutz said it. I said people have said it.
No. And interesting, because you are part of the younger generation, and I'm part of the older generation.
I'll take that, Lutz.
It's not because of my birth, but I think. It's definitely what I recognizes within recognizes at our customers and also at our own organization. So we see a significant change in the working habit, not in the sense of we work hard or not hard, but it's hard to find the balance between the private situation and the working environment. And there, the younger people are much more choosier, what you call choosier, or they are more. They try to keep their focus and try to keep the balance between all these things, where the older generation, they tend more to put the focus on the success of being successful in their working environment. That's what we recognize. That's not good or bad, but it's just the case. And this also a good management has to handle. It's not a case of the younger are bad and the older are better. So it's we have to handle the different attitudes.
Like, young people have always been so super irritating. but
Apparently that's me you're talking about.
yeah, well, no, I just experienced the complete opposite thing. That the older generation are more calm in their way of planning their career or living it, and younger people get super stressed because they think they have the right to have the right CV and do the right thing at the right time in the right order, or else everything will pass them by. So it's just a different experience than...
Nico?
I'd like to add something to that. I think this stress is because the younger people are impatient. They want to reach something in a faster way, but sometimes experience takes time, and they are focused. But if they do something, that's what I experience at least, for a longer time, they get impatient, want to go the next level. And that makes it sometimes difficult if you need to learn something that really takes years of experience.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I think one more word from Lunia, and then we're going to come to the Q&A from the crowd, because there's lots of questions coming in, and I want to do them justice too, but you had something to say, Lunia.
Yeah, I think because it sounds like the young people are difficult and work less, but I think the difference is young people are more aware of mental health issues. Yeah, that it's an aspect. A manager can have impact on your mental health, and they're more aware of that. And what I liked one point, what you said, but it's like that social media. I mean, we have to acknowledge that every young person today has the possibility to get coached by the best personalities worldwide. Simon Sinek, Gary Vee, name them. Every day they get coaching snackables, and after a time, of course they have impact. Of course they hear from Sinek and Gary Vee how leadership is supposed to be. And after, if you listen to them 1 year, 2 years, of course you'll be asking yourself, okay, what's going wrong in our company? Why can't I have this, what they're all talking about? It has an impact.
Super good point.
Simon Sinek's going to be really happy for that plug, by the way. He's going to...
We'll send him.
Good. Thank you very much. So now we'll do the justice of coming to hear the questions from you out there. We'll ask a couple. One, thank you, Felix, and lots of upvotes. How to influence senior management in order to get employee engagement at the top of their agenda?
No one wants to break the ice.
But if it isn't, I mean, that's just frustrating. I mean, the companies I work with right now, their main focus is talent attraction and retention. So it is top of mind in the companies I work with, at least. So that's just frustrating. Yeah.
And if not?
Maybe I could add something.
Lutz, please.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of CXOs in Europe. Maybe it's also a little bit biased by the American point of view in this discussion. In Europe, the main topic of the CXOs is we have the Ukrainian war, so we have a disturbed logistic chain, and the people have to return to the office because we have the post-pandemic way to work. We have to introduce this. So these are major topics. So it's the cost is to reduce the cost because of energy prices, disturbed logistic chains, and unstable political environment. These are the top issues for the CXOs. And then if you talk to them, you're like, okay, we have to engage the younger people a little bit more, or the employees, all employees a little bit more. That's not on their top list. That's on the top list of the HR management. And that's also important, I know it. But for the CXOs, they have to handle the crisis right now, an additional crisis, according to after the pandemic caused by Corona.
Okay, then does anyone here have an angle of how to get it on that already packed agenda?
If I may answer the original question, I hear this question a lot from junior managers. When we work with junior managers trying to develop their leadership techniques, we try and open their eyes to these wonderful, transformational leadership and servant leadership and positive mindset and all of these wonderful strengths-oriented things. And they often say, oh, wow, yeah, love that. but that's not actually what's happening at our company. That's not how we're being led. And so they sometimes ask the question, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to bring in these new, more people-oriented leadership techniques, although we're not being led like that ourselves? And the best answer that I found to give them over the years is, we've got to change that from the bottom up. Yeah, we've got to create such a groundswell of culture that one day, when you're climbing the pyramid, you'll be there, and your cohort and your peers will be there. And if you can take that culture with you, then you can change it. I think it's a slow game, but I think that's the best answer that I can give young leaders at the moment.
Be the change you want to see.
I like it.
I also think you have to add on top of that, Matt, the idea of looking at company policies, practices, programs that are in place, because sometimes those things can be the impediment to being able to enact that cultural change that you were talking about that makes it a more attractive place for workers of all sorts. And so I think it is, whether it's the CEO or HR or a combo of those people and communication, we need to start looking at what are we doing to block becoming that new place that perhaps COVID opened up our eyes to possibilities. And we just need to see if our systems will allow us to continue to appeal to those employees of all spectrums.
I would like to add one more thing. Senior management is normally number focused, and I think what they and we have good and bad senior management in terms of HR, and so I think it's good to start with a survey to get numbers from the company to say, look here, that's what the people think about our situation. That's where we should go. And with those numbers, I think it might be possible to convince those senior management that is not that's HR oriented, and to help them, and also, of course, to train them if they are, let's say, old-fashioned way of leading a company. I think that would be a way to convince them.
Okay, super. There's lots more questions here, so we'll just move on for now. Thank you very much. And keep the questions coming in. Keep the upvoting in particular as well coming in, so I can ask the right questions. We've got a double question from Mattis here. What do you think is the single biggest driver of why people quit? And on the flip side, is that the reason why they're also loyal and stay? If it's positive.
Well, you mentioned a statistic earlier, didn't you?
I did. The number one reason, at least in Germany, it's because of the managers. And my question is, if it's possible, if people leave because of the manager, then actually it should be possible to keep people through the managers if you work on the trust, respect, and bonding, on the relationship between employee and manager.
Sure. I think everyone's got an experience of their best and worst manager ever, right? And you know what that means in terms of, good. Any other views?
I think it's very well said.
Nico?
One more reason is also that some people don't see opportunities for career development. So this is something that needs to be shown up, how they can develop from a junior to a senior position, how the way is. If you see a way, if you see a goal, it's easier to get there.
Okay, super. Thank you very much.
I think it was also interesting when you did all the polling, and you saw the numbers in many of your polls there, Max, that were 25%, 30%, 25%, 50%. I mean, it was all sort of evenly spread. And I think sometimes we get into this, well, everybody needs to go along with this program. And what we need to start doing is taking a little bit more individualistic look at employees. They're not all cut from the same cloth. They all have different motivations for being there and staying there or leaving. And I think a manager really is doing his or her best job when they're preparing someone for that next job. And that next job might be, selfishly, in that same organization or somewhere else in the company. But it's also a grown-up thing to do as a manager to be able to get ready for someone to move outside the organization, because that's where their next career step is. So I think we need to stop treating everybody as cut from the same cloth and begin to look at them as individuals and responding to their needs as much as the company needs.
Okay, super. Thank you. Let's go to the next questions from you wonderful people out there. Lucia, long question, but it's worth it for the ending. In recent months and years, it's been more visible that certain industries have had difficulties attracting talent, or rather, the competition from employers' side has been fierce for attracting experts. Do you see any trends in this respect, and how will employers react? in brackets, hoping for a 4-day work week, and I'm asking for a friend.
I've got to say, I've heard this question before as well in groups that I've worked with for quote-unquote boring companies, right? We've heard about blockchain, and we've heard about social media companies, and we've heard about, I don't know, all these quote-unquote exciting companies that people work for. And I've worked for and with more traditional companies. I don't know, supply chain management companies, logistics organizations, companies in production that produce the widget that supports the widget that holds the bracket, right, that we don't really know that exists and stuff. And they've come up to me in breaks, young executives over the years, and said, oh, you know, what do I have to do to work for a fun company? And I think that the disconnect is that it's not the product or the service that has to be quote unquote fun. I think you can create a fun or wonderful environment no matter what you're producing or what wares you're selling. I think that's genuinely possible.
So, any other trends coming through? Industry specific?
Definitely in the tech industry, we have, it's a challenge. Getting people and keeping people as well. So I believe that the companies have to change. Yeah, and they will have to change their culture, way of working, and the way of leadership, because people will be leaving the companies and go elsewhere, especially now that remote work has been introduced on a larger scale. I can work for a company in another country probably in a few years that offers me more or a better company culture.
So you say we need to change leadership. How would you define that new leadership style in a couple of words or sentences? Maybe anyone.
I would say in a leadership which is people-oriented, that puts people above the company success.
Okay. Any other views?
Yeah, and also I would like to add that you have to be flexible within your management team. So you have to react flexible on the demands, on the requirements of your employees. So if your guys, for example, if they only want to work 4 days a week because of their private situation, because of if they do something else, whatever, then you have to react on this. You do not have to argue against it, but you have to react like, okay, let's make it happen. Let's reorganize the way we work together and how we organize our department, our projects, or whatever. So we can realize your this. So that's very important, to be flexible in the mind and to be flexible in the organization to change things, to make things happen that the employees want.
Okay, so we've got people first, we've got flexibility.
And we need to face the problems. I think in most cases, problems in companies are being ignored. Yeah, they are visible, people talk about them, but they're being ignored. I mean, as a manager, I can't fulfill all wishes of my people, but acknowledging, okay, I've seen the problem, I know what you want, and I can't solve it right now. We're working it. I'm trying my best. Maybe in 3-6 months, it will be better. It's at least people appreciate that open communication rather than just pretending as if there's no problem. I mean, we're working with experts and not children.
Yeah. Anne?
No, exactly the thing that you have to trust that your employees are grown people and they know that the world is complex, and you can tell them that's a brilliant thing and we would love to do that. It's just not possible right now. And people are not going to go home and cry and tell their mummy just because you told them that something is not possible. I mean, yeah, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I throw one more in the pot?
And then Nico.
Yeah, and a shameless plug for my keynote later as well. I think we should recognise people's talents and strengths and really try and work on those. Yeah. Instead of creating jobs and filling them with people, why don't we find what the people can do and create environments for them? That might be interesting.
You got some love for Lunia there. Nico.
Yep. I want to get one step ahead also to the question. I think there are no boring industries. I think every industry is interesting. What is boring is the message. If you have a boring message or no message about your company or the industry you're working in, then nobody wants to work there. So even the coal industry, it could be very interesting. If you want to become a farmer, if you want to become a developer, it doesn't matter. You can tell a good story about why this is important job. And I think that's why some industries have problems, because they are very conservative. They are only looking for new hires in magazines, nothing online and so on. That is a problem. So you need to entertain also before they start the job.
Super. We'll go to one more question from the crowd.
Other thought.
Oh, Brad, please.
Can
No, please.
I throw in one idea? It's just, I've been hearing care for employees. I want to extend that just a little bit and say it's caring for employees and their families, because I think a lot of it is that we need to recognize that people have a life outside of work. And I think employers have solely focused on just that 8-hour work period. And I like the idea of working less. In fact, there's actually legislation in front of the California state legislature looking for a 32-hour work week. I think it's going to lead to productivity gains. We'll see.
Yet another reason to move to California. Thank you very much indeed for that, Brad. Okay, one more question quickly, and maybe just one voice, because we have to crack on. So what can everyone do to shape their own workplace and their career so they're not dependent on what their leaders choose? Pearl of wisdom from a couple of you, please. Now, Anne.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm self-employed because... Yeah, well, I don't apply to rules, so I'm the worst one to give advice on this one.
So who does want to give an answer then? How can people out there shape their own careers? What career advice do you have to shape their own destiny and not rely on their boss?
My coach asked me, oh, sorry, please. My coach got me to ask myself the question again and again and again, what do I really, really want? What do I really, really want? And I think if every candidate for a job knows the answer to that question, I think they will go and find that position, go and find the company that they want to work for.
Okay.
So tell me what you want.
Yeah, I did say that.
Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, I would even call it the superpower, but wonderful. Thank you very much. So look,
one,
go on, one last word. Let's go.
Yeah. So it's so easy. So make the things that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And you have success. So do not study things because everybody studies economics. That does not make you happy. If economics makes you happy, then do it. But do not do it because of the wave, because everybody's studying economics. So do the things that makes you happy.
Super, thank you. What a wonderful, wonderful way to end this session. First of all, thank you very much to all of our amazing panel people. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can see any and all of them, as Matt implied, in their individual sessions, which are coming up very, very soon. So stay tuned, and why wouldn't you want to stay to listen to, well, all of them if you could, or at least as many as possible. So thank you very much indeed to, can I call you the Spice Girls now, maybe? But anyway, thank you very much indeed.